Today, we're diving into a thinking tool that's been sharpening minds for, about 2,500 years. It comes from ancient Greece, but trust me, it's more relevant than ever for pretty much every complex problem we're all dealing with right now. You know the feeling, right? You're in a meeting and it just grinds to a halt, or a big project hits a wall. Why? So often, it's because the whole thing is built on assumptions nobody ever bothered to question. We do this all the time, in our jobs and in our lives. We just kind of operate on autopilot, accepting ideas without ever really kicking the tires. But what if the answer isn't some new management fad or a productivity app? What if it's a way of talking, a way of thinking, that forces us to dig down to the bedrock of what we actually believe and why we believe it? So what is this thing exactly? Well, at its core, it's a total flip of the script. It's not about being the smartest person in the room with all the answers. Nope. It's about getting together to figure out what's actually true. To really get it, you have to picture ancient Athens. The city was crawling with these professional teachers called sophists. They were wizards of rhetoric, and for the right price, they'd teach you how to win any debate. It was all about persuasion. But then you had Socrates. He was playing a totally different game. He didn't care about winning an argument. He wanted to find the truth, even if it meant proving himself wrong. So here's the official definition. The key word here is cooperative. It's a structured conversation that uses questions to make you think harder, not just about the topic, but about your own thinking. It's basically a search for the cracks and contradictions in your own logic. And I love this part. Socrates had this fantastic analogy for what he did. He called himself a midwife of ideas. See, he believed that real knowledge isn't something a teacher just pours into your head. The ideas are already in there, somewhere. His job was just to help you give birth to your own understanding. He's not the source of the idea, just the person helping you bring it into the world. And all of this flows from his most famous idea, right here. For Socrates, this was the whole point. To be fully human, you had to constantly question everything, your beliefs, your values, your life. If you're not doing that, you're not really living. You're just existing. Okay, so we know the what and the why, but how does this thing actually work? Let's get into the mechanics, the step-by-step of how you go from thinking you know everything to, well, not so much, and then finally to real insight. The core engine of the method is called the elenchus, which is just a fancy Greek word for refutation. It works like this. First, someone makes a confident claim, like, courage is basically endurance. Socrates would say, okay, interesting. Then he'd get them to agree to a few other common sense things, like, and we agree courage is a good thing, right? But sometimes just enduring something foolishly isn't a good thing, is it? And boom, suddenly the other person's own beliefs contradict their original definition. Courage's endurance falls apart, and they're forced to admit, I guess I don't really know what courage is. So just to lock that in, that whole process, that logical cross-examination designed to find inconsistencies, that's the elenchus. It's the engine that drives the whole Socratic method. Now, the point of the elenchus isn't to make someone feel bad. It's to lead them to this very specific state of mind called aporia. Aporia is that feeling of being completely puzzled. It's that whoa moment when your certainty just shatters and you realize you don't know what you were so sure you knew. This confusion, it's not failure. It's the starting line for real learning. And hey, this isn't just some academic theory. You can literally read about it happening. In one of Plato's dialogues, a guy named Meno gets so turned around by Socrates that he says his mind and tongue are benumbed. He's deep in aporia. And that is exactly where Socrates wants him, because now his mind is finally open. Okay, I know this might all sound very philosophical, very ancient, but what's amazing is how this method is absolutely alive and kicking in some of the most demanding fields today. Let's start with the business world. For a top consulting firm like McKinsey, this is pure gold. Instead of just handing a client a report, their consultants use Socratic questioning to guide the client to figure out the solution themselves. Why? Because then the client owns it and they're way more likely to see it through. Or look at IBM. They use it to train their leaders to stop being the ones with all the answers and start being the ones who ask the best questions. That's how you build a culture of innovation. And it's definitely not just business. Law schools practically run on this stuff. It's how they teach students to think like a lawyer, attacking a problem from every conceivable angle. In psychotherapy, cognitive therapy uses it to help patients question their own self-defeating thoughts. It's a game changer because the insight comes from within. It's also the foundation of Socratic seminars and classrooms, and it's the technique the very best journalists use to get past rehearsed talking points and get to the truth. So clearly, this method is incredibly powerful. But, and this is a big but, before you decide to go full Socrates in your next meeting, there are some pretty important challenges and takeaways we need to talk about. Let's be real, this is not a shortcut. It takes time, and in a world obsessed with speed, that can be frustrating. It's also really uncomfortable. You have to be okay with being wrong, which requires some serious intellectual humility. Plus, questioning your boss or your boss's boss, that can be tricky, even in the best environments. And honestly, doing this well is a skill. It's not easy to facilitate without sounding like you're just interrogating someone. But, and you knew there was a but coming, if you can get past those hurdles, the rewards are massive. This method builds the exact skills everyone is desperate for: deep critical thinking, true collaboration, and genuinely innovative problem solving. It leads to smarter, more solid decisions, and it builds a culture where asking why is not just allowed, it's encouraged. So here's the bottom line. This Socratic method isn't about being the person in the room who knows the most. It's about being the person who has the courage to question what we think we know, especially when it comes to our own sacred cows. It's a workout for your intellectual courage.
So I'll leave you with a question. In the spirit of Socrates himself, what is one core belief you hold about your career, your relationships, how the world works, that you have never, ever really put under the microscope? Give it some thought. Because as we've learned, the unexamined life, well, you know the rest. Thanks for tuning in.